Hello everybody, this is Ryan Wiseman from theowen.com, Grey Bruce Digital, and other random things around here in Grey and Bruce County. And I'm talking today with Carl Cosack, who is outside of Grey and Bruce County, here in Dufferin, is that correct?
Yeah, Dufferin County.
And I got talking to Carl, I guess, when we introduced the PSA project idea. And Dufferin is outside of, obviously, the area I had planned for this little project, but the topic we're going to discuss today, I wanted to give more time to, and I wanted to be able to discuss it in an Owen Sound centric kind of way. Carl is the chair of NDACT, which is the North Dufferin Agricultural
Community Task Force.
There we go.
Well done, right?
So NDACT is one of the organizations that is, I guess, driving the awareness campaigns around the proposed mega quarry that I dearly hope that you've heard something about at this point in time. Carl, welcome and thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not just today taking the time to just get involved in this from the get-go.
Yeah, it's a huge project that sort of happened upon us thanks to the Baupost Group hedge fund out of Boston, Massachusetts, and their local representatives, the Highland Companies. Highland Companies started to buy some of the best land around in Melancton Township, North Dufferin. In 2006, they amassed about 7,000 acres under the pretense that they wanted to be the province's largest grower and processor of potatoes. In 2007, people started to notice that they were drilling rigs all over the place, and Highland Companies at the time told us that they were drilling for irrigation purposes. Now, most of the farmers in my neighborhood looked at that and said, if we were owning that farm, we wouldn't be drilling for water there. And from there on, the process just has gathered steam. Finally, in March 11th, 2011, of this just past this year, they finally filed a formal application, which stunned everyone, including us who were already suspicious, by proposing the largest ever limestone quarry in Canada, the largest quarry in North America. The numbers around it are just unbelievably startling. Not only will they destroy 2,136 acres of prime land just at the get-go, and that's not considering the impact it will have on all the land around it. The application talks about unlimited tonnage. The application talks about 150 trucks per hour, 7 days a week, heading south, and 150 trucks coming back 24 hours a day. The application makes reference to 24 tons of explosives every day except on statutory holidays and Sundays. And the application is clearly makes a clear case for purchasing the rail line from Orangeville going north to Owen Sound.
More of the background in place for people. The purpose of this giant hole in the ground is purported to be the limestone quarry.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of this? What do we need all this limestone for?
Well, limestone is an aggregate used in cement, amongst others. It's a needed aggregate. It's a needed resource. Ontario is rich in limestone, and one certainly has to ask, are we as a province willing to pay the price that is being asked here, which is a loss of local food on a massive scale of some of the land that, Ontario just doesn't have enough around? And are we willing to grant any company the right to pump, get this, and this is out of their application, 600 million liters out of an aquifer every day, allow this water to be run onto an open pit mine floor, gathered up after 3 days of settling, and then pumped back into the aquifer? Are we really, as a population, province-wide, prepared to pay that price? And clearly the last 10 months or so of public engagement in this process tells you we're not. This is just too crazy on all levels, and NDACT's mission statement reflects the sentiment of the people very clearly. There cannot be under the water table excavation in North Dufferin. End of story.
What are the threats there?
Well, the quantity of the water is just tremendous. Now think that Melancton is the highest part of southern Ontario. The Dufferin County has its byline as the roof of Ontario. So from there, water runs in all directions, both north and south, east and west. And when you mess around with this huge limestone resource, which is sort of like a sponge holding the water and then meters it out into the Grand and into the Nottavasaga and so forth, if you start mess with that, you can never fix the unintended consequences. So if you look at what this soil is doing, the crops it grows, from Brussels sprouts to potatoes to rhubarb, you name it, all in huge quantities as defined by, half of Toronto's consumption in a year comes from that area. Part of the reason why that land is so good is because the limestone sits underneath it. It seems to supply the water when there's a drought, and it seems to drain the water when there have been lots of rains. A lot of clay farmers, when you get a good rain, the next 4 or 5 days you have to stay off it, or you do irreparable harm to your soil. These guys, the next day they can be added digging or work on their land. It is truly an exceptional resource, so much to the point where we have applied to have it designated as such. And people, so that's, nature has put it in place, and the industry or life in the province has sort of built around it. There's development on the Grand because the Grand has water. There's development down the Nottavasaga because the Nottavasaga supplies water. When you start to mess with that, you mess with a lot of people. The drinking water, or this whole area is the resource for drinking water for about 1 million people downstream. Everybody remembers Walkerton. So when you look at their application, there is nothing in it that would ever address anything but a perfect scenario. What they're planning to do to pump this water, like, you just sort of got to visualize this. You dig this huge hole, 2,000 football fields big. You're going to allow this water to drain in on the mine floor. You're going to have basal ditches in it, which are ditches running north and south, according to their application, into collection ponds. And then they'll have 16 massive pumps pumping 40 million liters each, every day in perpetuity, forever. This is in their application.
And this is to maintain their, because they're going below the water level, they need to maintain a dry space within which to be working.
That's right. So dry is all relative.
Yes.
And people have absolutely the concern that our now fresh water will in the end become recirculated open pit mine floor drinking water for a population. This is just too bizarre. This is just too bizarre. And as David Patterson points out, who is a CEO of Northwater Capital, in a recent article, he said, of all the companies that started on the Toronto Stock Exchange 100 years ago, there's only one left. So in perpetuity would extend past that 100 years, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. I phoned him, and he never answered. So finally my daughter Nikki and I went to Hamilton and tried to look up his office, figuring we can catch him on the way to his parking lot and, just talk to him. And Hamilton, one-way streets and all, is sort of a challenge for a country boy, but nevertheless we ended up having to walk King Street in order to see where we were going. And their corporate address, as filed with the government, is a UPS store in Hamilton, with their suite is the mailbox. That's it. How are you ever going to hold somebody accountable who operates like that?
They're terribly invested in our economy, obviously.
Well, that's one of the big things. There's just no skin in the game at all.
Yeah.
Their shareholders are amongst others, are from Florida and Ohio. John Lowndes, who started this, lives in Oakville. None of their kids go to school here. None of their kids have any stake in this whatsoever. So if things don't go right, they can just say, okay, sorry, we're going to declare bankruptcy.
Yeah, bad investment, darn.
And the government and the taxpayers get to try to look after fixing the mess we started.
In perpetuity.
In perpetuity, thank you, yeah. And the implications, the company hasn't been really helpful in answering the question that need to be answered. Why unlimited tonnage application? And there's a real distinction to be made between what you hear in the press and what you see on TV from them and what is in their application. The application is a legal document filed that needs to govern all this discussion. And in their application, the request for unlimited tonnage is very simple. It's just that, unlimited tonnage. In their rhetoric, they say it's all for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. Then if it is all for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, why are you trying to buy the railway going to Owen Sound? You know, the two statements just don't make any sense, because if you buy the railway, the only reason you do that, from a layman's term, is to use the Owen Sound Harbour to load ocean-going freighters. You're not going to load that freighter here, drive it around all the way to Hamilton, and unload it again. So suspicions are high on all levels that we're not being told the truth, and I think Ontarians has the right to know exactly what is going to go on here and why they're doing it.
Yeah, the railway, that caught my attention early on, or I guess the trucks, the article, and was it the just by the numbers? Is that within this?
Yeah, could well
resource?
have been.
When I saw the number of trucks proposed to be heading, well, I guess that you were saying 100 a day heading south.
150 an hour.
An hour. Jesus.
Yeah, you just got to wrap your head around this concept. So their traffic study goes only south, and that supports their claim to go to the Greater Golden Horseshoe.
Yeah.
The traffic study stops within 10 kilometers of the quarry site. South of Primrose, there are no trucks. We don't know where they go.
Yeah.
And the traffic study, as filed, is only on southbound traffic. Are those trucks not coming back?
On the aggregate front, I still have a hard time believing that this is all to meet local aggregate demand. And the 30 years was, you'd mentioned that the GTA has got an expected growth of X in the next coming 30 years.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but we don't know what the next 30 years look like on a whole bunch of different fronts, including fossil fuels being a key one. So I'm concerned about whether there really is this demand, or whether this aggregate is designed or intended for export to other places. Which brings us to the railroad, and which I guess brings us to Owen Sound a little bit. So we've been discussing the quarry site itself, but as this starts to spin out into neighboring communities, both trucks going south or trains going north, what are the risks or concerns with the delivery of this aggregate to wherever its intended use is?
Well, that's for me a difficult question to answer, but I can do it on a high level
Sure.
basis, and that is because their application is calling for unlimited tonnage. If they're going to send it north, they would likely, and to Owen Sound, they would likely envision, before economics work for them, something like a dozen 40-car industrial trains of limestone coming to Owen Sound every day, and a dozen of them going back south. The need around the GTA, long-term strategic planning is necessary on any level of government, even in your own household budget. We all get that. What will become of it, I can't really say. What I do want to say to you is that the public is so powerful, and it is not just rhetoric that we own the process. When the application was filed, 3,100 pages of it on March 11th, 7 banker boxes full. The public by law, by the MNR, had 45 days to respond, which included the long Easter weekend. You couldn't even find experts to have a look at it before that expired. And the public made known that they were not happy with that process. 2,700 some odd people wrote handwritten, non-photocopied, non-computerized letters to the minister asking to have that extended, and the minister did. Minister Linda Jeffries at the time, for Minister of Natural Resources, was good enough, saw that the public needed and wanted to be involved, and extended the period into July by 75 days. Another 3,200 some responses to that extension were filed. Unprecedented on all levels, as this is an unprecedented application. The public has had unprecedented involvement, which got recognized by the political powers to be.
Obviously, Owen Sound has a stake if we say that, or we look at the facts, not what's being necessarily told, but what the story tells in terms of the quarry building access to the northern rail line and the interest in the Highland companies in the rail line. myself, I don't particularly see an industrial harbor future as the vision I want for this community.
Oh, you're going to get one if you're not on it.
And I guess this is what we're doing here today. This is step one. Hopefully we can get more people involved. Any thoughts on how to get the local community talking about this a little bit more?
Yeah, for Owen Sound, you have an absolute right to ask those folks who represent you on any level of government what the plan is with the Owen Sound Harbour, and the communities that are home to the rail line have an absolute right to ask their representatives as well. And I'm one of the guys who still firmly believes that most people who run for public office do so truly because they want to serve their people and want to leave their place a better place to be. I find them in our region to be extremely accountable to the public. You just need to get enough questions asked and not just assume, which is no different anyone else. Folks who get asked by local population to make decisions are accountable to that population, and they know it. And we find them to be very approachable. So you have some serious issues in Owen Sound, because I don't know Owen Sound well enough to understand how the harbour would expand or how that would all look. But somebody who has an artistic flair, maybe they can draw up a possibility what this thing will look like. Just do a pencil sketch and sort of put a visual behind what this would have to be like here if you're really trying to unload a dozen or so 40-car, 100-ton each car rail cars of aggregate or cement or whichever form it gets here onto ocean-going vessels. Now Highlands, they say, you know, we're going to create all these jobs by this development.
I was about to ask that question.
And we have just huge concerns with that sort of thing. At first it'll look, 450 jobs, everybody would say, yeah, this is a good thing, we get that, we got families to feed, etc., etc. And in their application, they make reference to the fact that they'll spend $120 million a year, mainly in Melancton and Dufferin County, to support the quarry endeavor. Well, on the flip side, Region 6 tourism, which ends short of Collingwood, so does not include Georgian Bay, employs 1,500 people currently and generates, give or take, about $100 million in economic activity within that region. So where's the benefit?
No.
The farms that they run now, and let's be sure, folks welcomed Highlands as a grower. There's no issue with that. Grow potatoes. That's what you came here to do. No issue. Go grow potatoes. Grow crops for people. They're currently employing 70 people, so they're just going to take people out of the agricultural operation and put them into the aggregate operation. Where's the net benefit? Where is the net benefit? Why wouldn't the province or Highlands do something really innovative? Study Ontario's geology and find where there are, deposits worthwhile of this same rock, and go to the community and say, okay, we want to establish a mega quarry here. What's the support? There's lots of limestone above the water table.
Yeah.
There's a lot of limestone that's not under Class 1 prime agricultural land. How can you pick this location, which is truly, if I had to look at it from the outside looking in, the worst place to try this at? The water is a huge problem. And of course there are some suspicions about the water. Maybe it's not the limestone that's the prize here. Maybe it's the water that's the prize here. Well, being involved in farming and ranching, I know all through this, your broadcast area, people on the land have gone through extraordinary efforts to protect water courses, fenced out livestock, storages, runoff, treating rainwater properly, etc., etc., milk or wash water from the dairy industry. So I think extraordinary progress has been made, and it's very simple. We all run municipal or rural wells, so we're going to look after our own water.
Yeah, because you're directly
impacted. This is really not different. The people impacted by this aquifer will look after their own water. They're going to put a stop to this proposal. Mind you, only if they engage. You can't sit on your hands and do nothing. You got to engage.
Okay, well, we're working here in Owen Sound to try and get more people engaged. Let's talk a bit about NDACT as the organization and where you're at today, how people might be able to support or get involved with NDACT.
Right.
Or support the cause in any other way.
Yeah, there's lots of ways. So our website is just a treasure of information for those who want to do research. I think every published article on this is on there. There are links to the Highland website if they want to look at certain application portions, be it traffic or Aboriginal communication. It's all on that website. We have a weekly or monthly call to action on it, which generally we're asking people to support the initiative driven by NDACT. If we talk to a particular minister, write that minister a letter. Just a note, takes 5 minutes. Email is good. Do it on your own computer and away you go, just to reinforce that NDACT is supported in a big way throughout Ontario. We have sign depots everywhere. I'm not so sure if we have a sign depot in Owen Sound. And we would love, because it's really, the people here, if this train ever starts running, you wonder on why you didn't do something about it.
Yeah.
And so it becomes an Owen Sound issue. It becomes an issue for every community between here and Melancton, between here and North Dufferin. And so signs are a good way. We're asking for a $10 donation to cover the cost of doing that. We have various signs, the ones behind me. We're now putting one out, Food and Water First, which speaks to every Ontarian, be it in Bruce County or be it in Dufferin County. We have these signs for windows or to put into your car. There's some information on the back. They're free. If we have a depot that we can send them to, we'd be happy to do that. We have buttons and all this other normal paraphernalia to just get people to be aware of what is going on. And if someone who is listening wants to be a depot, send an email to info@ndact.com and we'll see that you get looked after.
Awesome.
Awareness is a big deal. And I need to, I need to tell you, there's ways to raise awareness, and then there's ways to raise awareness to get success. Yelling and screaming at politicians isn't serving anybody. Let's ask them questions that they're okay to answer. So if we were going to go to the McGuinty government and say, stop this quarry today, chances are that would be asked that the government cannot fulfill. NAFTA regulates that things can only be rejected on the facts as presented. And they would be rejected for a US company as it would be for an Ontario company. And we appreciate the government is engaged in that process, and as are we. When you go locally and ask your representatives what are the long-term plans, official plans, zoning issues for the harbour, you're supposed to be able to get a good answer. What is your community's attitude towards selling the rail bed to the island companies? You're supposed to be able to solicit a good answer. So ask questions that engage your politicians and that they're accountable for what they give you back.
Yeah, that brings more fact into light.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And on facts, we will create the communities, be it in Melancton or in Owen Sound, that people want to live in. Yeah. For your viewers, everyone in Bruce County understands farmland. It's a no-brainer to them. Everyone, no matter where we live, understands water. And Owen Sound, you gotta get engaged and see what your representatives are planning for your harbor. Mandatory.
That's a process that we're undertaking right now. The harbor master plan is being reviewed. I went to the, whatever you call a bunch of consultants coming and asking you to give them their work back.
Open houses?
Yeah, it was basically an open house, yeah. A design charrette. And out of that meeting, no, I didn't hear a single person put up a hand and say, I'd like to see, a real industrial commercial harbor of the aggregate transportation kind as our area of growth. So,
well, one thing that we learned is please don't let your life be dictated by omission. The question would be not to say you didn't hear anybody. The question would be for you to stand up and say, are there plans for an industrial style harbor up here?
To follow what's happening in the quarry issue, and we noted that everyone's busy. There's not a lot of free time to get engaged or be engaged. I'm doing my part. I hope others in the community are going to do the same. I thank you, Carl, and everyone in NDACT and the Dufferin and Melancton that are working to get us all up to speed on what this issue really means. And so I do encourage more people to get involved, even if it's, an hour of research here or there, and sharing what you find. That's an important thing. You made the comment that the quarry side of the equation has 6 lobbyists that are operating. So 6 lobbyists, even if they work 40 hours a week, that's 240 hours of time. I'm sorry, but we can, a couple hundred people can make that up, and there's some value in thinking that way.
Yeah, there sure is.
So again, thank NDACT, and let's see what we can do about furthering the awareness on this issue as we move ahead.